Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 462 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Olexiy Arestovych, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician, lawyer, and blogger. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Klaus, for continuing to support this station. You guys are amazing, and with this, we deep dive into day 462. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, May 31st, the last day of spring, and it is 21 or 9 p.m. in Kiev, same time in Moscow, day 462 with Olexiy Arestovych. Hello, Olexiy. Hello, everybody. Okay, we have 46,000 starting with us today. 12,000 has already clicked the like button. Huge ask, the usual. Please continue as you've been doing for 462 times. Click the like button, share links to that stream, and do not forget to subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. And if you are listening or watching that in English, subscribe to the Privateer Station as well. More links are in the description of that video, and let's start. I wanted to start today with, everybody is talking now about impending counteroffensive. Oh, amazing, right? Right, even American side is talking about it now. And I'd want to comment a bit on the statements made by Washington. And it was Senator Lindsey Graham and now official representatives of the White House are saying that plans are already confirmed and everything will commence in summer. Well, the summer starts tomorrow. Everything supposedly, all the needed support, technical support is already received by Ukraine for that action. And you heard Zelensky also confirm that all the orders are given. And basically everybody is repeating the same statement, that counteroffensive that is so expected by everybody, so much awaited event is about to begin. So, do you see signs that this is indeed is going to happen tomorrow, the day after? Basically a question of a couple days. And also, can one consider the attack on Moscow with UAVs, and also before that raid to Belgorod region by Russian Voluntary Corps? Could that be a little prelude to the counteroffensive? Well, okay, let's do it in orderly fashion. First of all, I need to say hi to my kids. All three of them are watching the stream live from different places. Dad loves you. Second, it is impending since November of last year. Of course, it was planned way in advance, but it needed additional support, and it was provided, it was supported by the rhythm of the support from allies. Now, Americans recently confirmed another package, and did you notice what's in there? Tell us more. So the main thing is military air defense. So Humvee-based Avenger systems that can follow active troops on the ground, more Stingers, more missiles to Patriots. So in essence, things that can help troops to advance and cover them from air. Also a lot of tools for clearing mines, a lot of additional equipment that is usually needed during motion, during move, during counteroffensive. So looking at that, one can say that our allies suspect that counteroffensive will be broad. So it'll be a very large-scale event, both by breadth, depth, and time duration. And obviously, this will take some time. This will not be a quick 1 or 2 day action. And if to calculate how much support have we gotten already, it appears that we are ready for a rather prolonged action, plus there is more support following that. So if to listen to the words of Lindsey Graham when he was visiting, he said that Ukrainians demonstrated an impressive scale of power and force of their military. So very soon everybody will see that on the front line, and everybody will see the scale of our might. And those who are occupying our land will definitely feel the strength of that wave. Our president also commented yesterday that everything is signed, and, the sudden war starts suddenly, as in the movie To Kill the Dragon. So we'll just wait. Very soon everything will come in motion. All right, let's do another polling today. We are posing a question today, following that opening statement by Olexiy. If you're watching us live, that question is in chat, and the question is, will the strikes of UAVs and volunteer corps raids into the depth of Russia affect the outcome of counteroffensive? Yes, no, and it's hard to tell. 4,500 already voted, 73% say yes, no, 19% say no, and a few say don't know. It is obviously a non-scientific poll, but it's good to measure the temperature among our viewers. So there was another statement I wanted to bring to your attention. Two news. One is that South African Republic will change their law, and the discussion ended in them agreeing to provide political immunity to Putin from the executing the order of international court, even though they are part of the jurisdiction of that court. So translating that into human language, they will not make an attempt to arrest him and to deliver him to Hague. And also, both Zelensky and Putin were invited to meet Erdogan after his winning the election. And obviously, none of them will go for that event there, but it seems like Zelensky will go there after to negotiate the Green Deal later. So Putin likely will not go anywhere, right? But all that shuffle with giving him these opportunities and additional noise around these events where he can attend, what can you say about that? Well, yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to another summit, to another military summit that's on the 4th of July. And South African Republic, BRICS conference, if they don't arrest him, there is another question. If he is to fly there, where will he land for refueling? I don't know, maybe Central African Republic? Maybe, but it's a lot of risks. And if he is not visiting Erdogan, if he is not visiting another summit closer to Russia in Asia, one can think that he probably won't go to Africa. And we understand that BRICS is a definite Russian interest. It's an alternative, so to say, to American-centric structures. And even Saudi Arabia is winking, maybe they'll join that organization. But I don't think he is seriously ready to take that risk. And that the situation in the world with the countries that one can will be hard-pressed to call Russian allies, the countries of BRICS. So, not exactly. So the situation is rather complex. And Russia has already counterfeit products coming via gray schemes from different routes, including the country where they recently had elections and now they're inaugurating the president. So I do not see the list of questions that Putin could have resolved in person. To support that he is still well received by his counterparts, leaders of other countries, Maybe, but the problem is that he cannot control them, and he doesn't know if they will refuse to take pictures with him or not, if they will refuse to shake his hand or not. And that's a risk, that's a definite risk for him. So, given his lifestyle, his bunker proclivities, he likely will continue to stay in bunker. He is very afraid of being in situations when protocol is broken, when he is not accepted. Well, he had been to situations when he was not accepted by his peers, by his peer group of presidents of different countries, and that is hurtful to him. He needs to project his might and his authority onto his electorate. And one thing when you do that through your propagandists internally, and the other is to continue doing that when the picture says otherwise, when the leaders of other countries don't want to shake your hand or don't want to take pictures with you. So I really doubt that he will go there unless he maybe strikes an agreement with all the BRICS leaders that they will shake hands, will pose with him. Otherwise, the chance of him coming to that conference in South Africa is very, very low. And yeah, there are a lot of risks related in taking that jet to Africa. Okay, even if it's not going to be shot down, what if any technicality happens and the plane needs to land somewhere in emergency landing? More risks for arrest, more risks otherwise. Knowing that and knowing his character, he likely will not take these risks. And yeah, Mark, if there was no arrest warrant, he probably would have visited that. No, not even a doubt. But with the arrest warrant, he definitely is going to stay in Russia. And he likely will just request to have the video conference. They already confirmed that they will have this capability, and we understand who might have requested that. There is actually a direct correlation. I don't know who is launching UAVs towards Moscow, but I suspect that it could be Bryansk, Kursk, or Ural People's Republics by the names of Russian territories. And I suspect that one needs to, in order to defend Moscow from all these UAVs, one needs to bring a lot of air defense systems to Moscow suburbs. And Panzers, you cannot buy them in the store. So, right, this is this is a significant measure. So, guess what's going to happen after these UAV attacks? Following our poll here, that indeed it will affect, because situation on the front, because the system that is pulled towards Moscow to protect skies there will not be protecting Russian troops at the front line. So, this definitely makes me smile. And you know, they'll have to pull troops to Belgrade region just in case. Right, of course. So inner Russian border that they'll have to protect. And I like Podolak's statement on this, Olexiy. He jokingly said that these UAVs were probably Russian. They lost their bearings and then they turned home to fly back to their master. So, another news. Military leader of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, in his conversation with General Mark Milley, he said that he shared his plans of Ukraine military for counteroffensive. So, going back, it does to the opening of this stream, it looks like Ukrainian psyop. That they're trolling, they're keeping on the tiptoes Kremlin and their troops occupying Ukraine with all these statements about counteroffensive, because they cannot really counter that. These propagandists, that drunk pig Gurulov that's on the screen often is saying, well, we cannot continue offensive, and he is saying that Ukrainians also cannot. So when they hear these statements, it appears that they have some psychological reaction, because every time there's a new wave of screaming coming from Russian propaganda after every time when Ukraine confirms that they're ready for counteroffensive. So they're running in two directions. Some of them are saying Ukraine also has no resources for that operation. Others are screaming that bloody murder, we need to gather everybody to try to withstand that attack, and they question if they can. So what can you comment on this? Mark, what will happen if one takes the fish tank and creates a wave there, just pushes it from one wall to another? It reaches the other wall, it reaches two others, and they start creating an interesting effect in there. So the waves replicate, basically become a storm in a little fish tank. And if you are on a small ship in the middle, it may even sink as a result of it. And that's what we're doing. We are confusing our enemy so they don't know where it'll happen, with what powers, where is the main direction of our counteroffensive. And it is a very expensive and difficult action to share your reserves throughout the 1,300-kilometer front line, when you have to make decisions what to cover, what not to cover, because it's nearly impossible with the resources to hold the whole front. What people do not realize is that everything is understood in comparison. So it started with, we'll take Kiev in 3 days. Now, 16 months later, we are talking about the fact that Russian army doesn't have resource for offensive. It's only private Wagner Corps that has special know-how how to commence some offensive operations by executing and shooting their own people before the attack, so the rest would run and go fighting, and everybody else cannot. So Russian military that had trillions of dollars weighted onto themselves isn't capable of doing anything that they were designed to do. And this is a fiasco. This is a full fiasco for the Russian military that had a brand of a winner that could have done anything and everything and fight everybody. Now that Red Army that used to threaten NATO and China cannot even commence an offensive in Ukraine. And that is only half the problem. The second part is that it's not us, it's Russian military experts who are discussing the situation of their propaganda shows, are discussing their defensive potential. They're not even sure in their own defensive potential. Oh yes, we can already hear that. Exactly. So even if on Zaporozhye region, where their troops probably will be taking the main brunt of the counteroffensive, they only have about 45 to 60% equipment needed needed by their regulations. So that's like in the old joke, clothes type 8, whatever we stole we wear. So they're a ragtag band of forces at this moment, and they have to resist the Ukrainian counteroffensive, hold the occupied territories, and according to their political ideation, also need to continue capturing more territories. So Moscow and many people in Russia are still not understanding that this is the house that was completely eaten by termites. And when the counteroffensive commences, you'll see the actual condition of that structure. We understand that there are still some conversations in wide public about maybe getting everybody to discuss things, to sit down, to negotiate. Macron mentioned today that if in a few months we'll need to sit down and negotiate, we will have to forget that Putin is a criminal, because he's more valuable to us as the negotiator than a criminal. But I keep laughing at all these statements. Well, you know, even Macron's statements, it has interesting undertones. I think he's trolling too. Right, but all these ifs and concerns that maybe it'll be too difficult to liberate Ukrainian territory, that maybe Russia has some potential, maybe Ukraine will not be able to liberate their territories this year. Polish President Duda, they recently commented, I think it may have been taken out of context, but he did say that Putin, you're saying that Putin is losing this war, but he has not lost any war yet. So I'm thinking that, and we talked about that this is a part of the Western culture to be skeptical, because you're either right or you're always pleasantly surprised if you are skeptical. But to me, all these caveats that it's not so easy to defeat Russia, it reminds me of that evacuation of the Western embassies right before the beginning of this war, when they were saying that it's 3 days until it starts and nobody can resist it, and they evacuated most of their embassies from Kiev. So my commentary to that is that when the counteroffensive starts, you'll see what is left of their army. Simple numbers tell that we destroyed already more tanks than they had at the moment when they invaded with them, and that's just defending. So, summing it up, I would say that, remember, Russian army lost their capacity for offensive, and they're switching to strategic defense back in the end of June of last year. People were laughing at it and smiling that we kind of made a statement too early, but essentially, since end of June, since July of last year, they've been in strategic defense. They were not in strategic offensive. Right. And I think the fact that they're still holding the territories they do is the result is only due to that partial mobilization they ran in autumn last year. And I want to remind that first Rammstein was on the 26th of April, and in June they already started to switch to defense. So it means that just with our own potential, with very limited Western support, we culled their capability to continue offensive operations. Because the first Rammstein gave us very little. And now when the Western machine has actually revved up and we've been getting support for about a year, it's really curious to see what's going to happen then. Just imagine that we realized that we stopped this might only with what we had, pretty much just with what we had at the moment. And now we are in a very different place. We have a lot more equipment, we have a lot more reserves and resources than we had at the moment, so it's curious to see how that will be used. The whole goal of Russian so-called winter offensive, which never happened, was aimed at taking strategic initiative in this war. That means that they would be the ones picking the location and time of the strike and would be just waiting for that. And now a question, who is now making these decisions? Ukrainian military now have strategic initiative. We are defining where are we going to attack, and they just have to sit and wait. We are turning this plate with the meat patty on it, and we're figuring out where to bite, and they're just waiting. And this is the situation of the beginning of this war when we had to react, and they had all the initiative. Now it's completely, the table's completely reversed. Because behind that day 462, there is a lot of routine, a lot of tiredness. People often cannot evaluate that on a strategic plane. But the fact is that Ukrainian military essentially stood by themselves without much help initially. We had 3 successful counteroffensive already. If to count the one near Kiev, then there was Kharkov, then there was Kherson. And that was with a minimal support. And now we continue getting more, and we are accumulating that, and more is coming. And Russia has wasted more reserves and more resources. So we'll see what will unfold shortly. And my prognosis is that Russian military will never ever have strategic initiative in this war again. All the initiative, like after the Kursk battle in the Second World War, belongs to us now, not to them. And we'll be choosing where to attack them, how to attack, and when to attack. And if need to, we can do the second counteroffensive, the third counteroffensive, and there's nothing they can counter that with. And this is the general goal. We are going to liberate our territory and kick them all out of here. And of course, they will resist, they'll try to hold things, but it'll be a rather bright action. I'm sure there'll be a lot of attention pegged again to the war in Ukraine. They know it, and they're nervously awaiting it. They're waiting for that hour when everything will start falling on their heads. And when it comes to motion, then it'll be part of our payback for everything they've done here. And I really want to see how they will be explaining their utter loss and the futile attempts to defend their occupied territories and failures. And what will Prigozhin be screaming in his new style? Oh, did you hear his new screams? Stinking bastards. It's not me, it's him. That's his words. This is how he calls Russian military leadership, that as the result of UAV attack on Moscow, we'll show the map. where they flew. These are unknown UAVs of unknown origin. Here is the map. On the 30th of May, according to data, there were between 25 to 32 UAVs attacking Moscow. Russian Ministry of Defense only reporting about 8. One of the UAVs hit the building, hit the residential building, and there are more reports about explosions and downed UAVs. You can see those in the brighter pink targets. And the interesting part that most of them hit Rublevsky highway. I've been through all that. Rublevka is not too big. Ilinska, Razdory. Rublevka itself is maybe a couple dozen kilometers. But they're saying Moscow is not Russia. They're saying that Moscow Sadovy Circle is not Russia. Boulevard Circle is not Sadovy Koltsoy, not Moscow, and not Russia. And I want to say that Rublevka is not Russia, is not Moscow, and is neither of those rings. This is a separate planet, a sort of meteorite that landed on the territory of Russia, of Moscow region, in Odintsovo region, where all their elites live. There are no simple people living there. So it's very symptomatic that the Selinska, Ilinka, Razdory, that's all around Putin's residence. You can see that yellow highlight in the 7 o'clock. That is Putin's residence there. So it seems like somebody is trolling and targeting his residence to make sure that he's got some burn from it. Do you think it's real to reach his residence? Yeah, of course, it could be. It's a huge residence, but how would you catch Putin there? Well, it's not so important. What's important is that you actually hit his property and hit his buildings. And then, yeah, it'll probably cause his bunker reaction and he'll go into hiding again. Right, but it's more important in a PR sense, because in the country like Russia, in a very authoritarian state, Stalin really liked it. There is a very important principle. Stalin used to say, if you cannot protect yourself, whom can you protect? And they start thinking now, all these surroundings, all these screaming about Russia, Russia, propagandists, they start to think. And people might stop believing their leader if he cannot protect himself. And maybe that's why partisans of Ural's People's Republic, as I said, might continue sending their UAVs towards Moscow or somewhere else. We'll see. All right, let's follow the map. We've been 28 minutes live. 217,000 are with us now. About 70,000 click the like button. I remind that we continue our poll. Can UAVs and volunteer corps raids into the Russian territory can affect the success of counteroffensive? Same, 74% yes, 18% no, hard to tell, neutral answer 8%. And we have over 50,000 who voted. All right, let's look at the map. You know it by heart. Anything new? Anything changed since the last couple days? And can one prognosticate the major directions of that counteroffensive? Yes, one can prognosticate that, but I'm not going to, because the main principle is do no harm. So without significant changes, what is called. There are some evil tongues on their side saying that Ukraine military is moving near Bilogorovka. This is in the north, around 1 o'clock on this map, towards Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. And of course, we are spreading their pincers around Bakhmut. But they're local actions, and with the scale of the front of that length, it's hard to notice them. Overall, Kremenaya and Liman, there is some action there. On Kremenaya, it was pretty rough for the last few days, but again, Russian side is screaming that Ukrainian military is advancing. And why Bilogorovka and Kremenaya? It's the northern group of red dots that was active for a while, and and Russians were making attempts to make a move there, and I think Ukrainian is now showing that, yeah, you can try to make moves here, but we'll show you who's the father, who is the master on this line of front, and they continue doing. So What about south? In Kherson, for the most part, it's artillery duels. Now again, there is a water barrier there, so it's mostly smaller diversion things that happen. Some smaller boats crossing the river and trolling one side or the other. It's for the most part artillery shellings. We had several successful hits over the last several days. We reached Berdyansk, Mariupol, Melitopol, Olexiy, and other places. In Telegram channels, they were talking about 200, 250 killed in actions, but I think it's more of a hysteria around it. I think in reality it's a bit smaller. But what's important is that these targets were comprised of rather precious personnel that we hit, and this is also part of counteroffensive preparation. We hit several big warehouses, big dumps, several command outposts, artillery systems. So I think everything will be all right in the shortest term. Okay. Why did I ask about this is that there was a statement by the commander of Ukrainian Navy, Vice Admiral Nishpapa, made a statement that he's making changes in Marine Corps in Ukraine. And he's saying that even before the end of war, and I quote, regarding creating that marine structure, it's an important agenda of today. Ukraine has a lengthy naval border. It's about 1,700 kilometers if you take it, the whole border in the south. And there are a lot of bays, a lot of sea territory, and this task to liberate those lands falls onto Marine Corps. And if Ukraine creates such a structure, and right now Ukraine already probably has enough forces for naval defense if they need to attack certain parts of Russian fortifications by sea, can one suspect that this could be one of the measures, one of the tools for deoccupation? We always hint that Crimea may become one of the first targets for deoccupation by Ukrainian military. What would you say? Well, look at our enemies. If they are digging trenches along the beaches and putting barriers along the Crimea shores, do you think it'll help to stop any military action from Ukraine? Well, to some degree. Probably Marine Corps might die laughing, but the fact is that Marines are very specialized troops. They can work from water-based platforms, and they can work both on land and on sea. So they're very highly trained specialists. Our partners, Americans and Britons, are giving a special attention to this kind of units, and Marine Corps is going through a very special path in this war. Whatever we have already, they are fighting very successfully in very hot spots, and they're a definite pride of our military. They're very serious and very worthy defenders. As for tools, well, I think we'll see different tools on different theaters, very different combinations, and I would say interesting military motions. Let's wait and see. When they start happening, that's when we'll discuss everything in detail, because it'll be actual action on the map. And it will not be a virtual supposition of who and how can. We'll be discussing the actual situations, who landed where and who's kicking whose butt where. All right. So President Zelensky, when he was visiting Hiroshima in Japan, summit of G7, he voiced his suggestion about holding a peace conference, summit of peace. And today, Wall Street Journal, American media, published some information that President of France, Emmanuel Macron, offered Zelensky to hold that peace summit, and also Denmark and Sweden joined that, to host it in Paris. And that's linked, that report, that publication is linked to statements made by European diplomats. So it is supposed to be happening, I think, around July 10th, sometime during the NATO summit in Vilnius. So, do you think that this summit that may be happening at that time, where the guarantees for Ukraine will be discussed, do you think it will bring fruit? Do you think these questions will not remain empty words when it is discussed in this format? Do you think it's productive? And what's your reaction to that initiative? So look, what do we need from the West? What kind of guarantees we need from them while we are going towards European Union and NATO? We need economic cooperation that allows us to raise the bar for Russian Federation. So measuring their potential against Ukraine to possibly attack us again, they would refuse doing that because of lack of resources, neither regional nor global war action. So we understand that, of course, in perspective, we'll have a lot of development. We are building joint factories with Germany, with Czech Republic, but that takes time. And while that time passes, we still need some guarantees, right? But looking at the volume of support from our Western allies, and the support that will likely continue, I think we already see that it is impossible for Russia to outplay Ukraine by potential, and they have nothing else to win over us with. Their equipment is worse than ours. Their military preparedness is worse than ours. The only thing they could rely upon is their potential when they have 10 guns instead of one. But even here, we are changing the tables. And daily, they meet more and more Western ammunition, Western systems on the front that they cannot counter with what they have. Second, we do need economic support because the state of our budget, when we have about a third of our country under the raging warfare, and our economy cannot pull that war by itself, and of course we need aid from our allies. In general, if the Western allies guarantee economic support, and they do, there's another 1.5 billion of economic support coming to Ukraine. I was barely watching the news, but I saw that statement, that number recently. So if they are helping us during war, I do not see a problem of that becoming a problem after the war, because after the war, Ukraine will start to work more actively, will start to revive our economy, and there'll be less risks. And there's a big program for rebuilding of the damaged infrastructure. So I see there is enough guarantees in the future that Moscow would not repeat their mistakes of youth in attacking Ukraine again. And neither do it on a large scale or a small scale. And the second task would be to preclude, to make sure we don't fall into economic collapse. And I think we're good. We're successful in this so far with the Western help. And the third will be to continue growing our economy and our capabilities, and our economic and military capabilities. And as we see the future plans that are already announced, 400 tanks a year on the joint tank factory with Rheinmetall, that's a big number. So I'm very optimistic looking forward, and I think G7, European Union, and NATO, they're discussing the terms of the time frame of Ukraine entering these organizations, but they're already not questioning that this is going to happen. And they understand that we need some guarantees on the path to that membership. I think we'll see all that happening in the next half a year. And also with our counteroffensive, Russia, after our motions, will not be ready to do anything active in a short frame. So that'll be a good factor. And also, if we do not lift the sanctions, and if military supplies to Russia will remain as long as possible, that will also slow them down. That will slow them down from restoring their military capacity, because they are still using gray schemes, and they're working with Iran and other countries to restock some of their supplies. So these sanctions need to remain in place. And that will be a good guarantee, help to Ukraine, and an effort to slow down Russia rebuilding their military will be a good enough guarantee, in my opinion. All right, we've been live for about 39 minutes. 240, 234,000 watching us. Please continue sharing links, clicking that like button if you have not done that yet. And do not forget to watch a couple previous streams we did. They had a little bit less viewership, and I understand some people are tired from the whole topic of war and from you and me, and I think mostly from you, Olexiy. But still, find some time to watch and to keep joining us. We are writing the daily diary here. Mark, it's not an issue. If they're tired, they can go watch something else. No, no, no. I'm addressing our audience. They need to keep active. And another news, they sent Volodin to meet with Erdogan. I'm not going to cut jokes in this regard because they'll say that Feygin is dirty jokesing again. So I don't know whom he'll take as a boyfriend there, but yeah, let them have fun. Berlin announced that they're closing 4 out of 5 Russian embassies as an answer to Russian actions against Germany. And this is a reaction to Moscow sending back some of the German diplomats. And of course, Germany is doing reciprocal action. And I would tell you that all the Russian embassies and consulates in Germany are fully comprised of FSB and military intel people. Their external branches, external service officers are the ones who work there. So if they're cutting it down by that, they're kind of shrinking it down 4 times. So that means that Russian capability in Germany dwindles down 4 times versus what they used to have. So I'm quoting one of the writers here, Vainovich, who said, "Do not think about kicking all of CIA agents from Moscow because they will send all of our KGB agents from the United States." So I think that's what's happening here. And speaking in general, how would you gauge Russian special services potential in Europe? I read several publications recently, and I'm talking about Europe, about the capacity to conduct any special operations. Very significantly declined. That's what happened with it. Why? Because during this war, during the last 16 months, European special services practically in every country, even those that are talking about importance of contacts with Russia, they've all done a big operation together by lowering the potential of Russian secret services, special services in Europe. How did they do that? Oh, they caught, they exiled, they arrested a bunch of people. And not a single country, I think there is not a single country in Europe that didn't do that. So as a result, their nets are torn. Their capability to conduct any operations is very weak right now. Of course, they have illegals and deep agents, but yeah, you don't want to use them on anything small, right? So their potential is seriously undermined, and Europe continues their operations against it, against Russian spies on their territory. They definitely do not want them. Well, right, before the war, remember, there was Tongashvilis, and they were cutting and killing and poisoning. Everybody remembers the Skripal family in Great Britain, poisoned Litvinenko, Chipigas and Mishkin, and other families. So some people are giving estimates that Russia doesn't really have any resources now. And what do you mean by scale operation? Poisoning Skripals? That's not a big scale, really. Well, yeah, but the problem is to leave Russia, even now. Well, I think, Mark, right now they're being observed very tightly. Before the war, they were going to Europe as their backyard. Now they're under much more scrutiny, so that limits their capabilities. And they need to be able to play a game on a different level. And the question is, how capable are they to do that? Because special orgs in Russia, when they give foreign passports to their agents with one number difference, right? Or when the residence address, they use the military intel building for the residence address for their agents and the official documents. That talks about the level of their expertise. So, and frankly, even if they pull some operation in Europe, if they poison or kill somebody in Europe, our Western allies will support Ukraine even harder. And if you watch it tight, they for sure know it. The moment they make another stupidity, another statement, another stupid operation, or just like they did with Belarus, they put some nukes, tactical nukes in Belarus, all of a sudden F-16 jets are available to Ukraine. So, and if you'll be talking and scaring, threatening other operations, maybe Ukraine will get F-35s now. Yeah, F-35s will be something without lubricant, right, for them. Exactly. And that reminds of that famous meme, remember, with several African Americans standing in white dress around somebody sitting in the middle. Yeah, if you know what I'm referring to. So that's what reminds of Russian current special services current position. And they had a chance to understand that. I think they still have capacity to carry out something in Europe if they want to, but I think they do not want to because they realize the fallout from that will be pretty severe. All right. So we asked a question, do you think the UAV's actions and volunteer corps actions across the border can affect the situation with counteroffensive and the outcome? 8% didn't know, 75% said yes. And we're concluding that stream with another statement. Tomorrow is June 1st, the International Day of Children Protection. We talked about that before by the initiative of a Congressman from Lithuania, Laurynas Kasčiūnas, called upon everybody to make a statement about the extradited children from Ukraine to Russia. Official data has 15,000, unofficial says up to 100,000 of these kids, that these kids need to be returned back home, back to Ukraine. And I would remind that as a result of this extradition of kids on the Russian territory, and they're giving them Russian citizenship and giving them to families, and you know, Russian families are a different thing. So International Criminal Court has a warrant out for Putin for kidnapping for that exact action. So tomorrow, if you can, please come out to Russian embassies, Russian consulates in Europe or America. If you can, if you have one within your reach, go out, curse them, tell them something, what you think about that. It is an important day from that point of view. And I understand it's Thursday, people may be working, but still, please make an effort. And I want to mention here, Mark, that President Zelensky started a new initiative, Bring Back Children of Ukraine. It's a presidential initiative that is paid special attention to. And the task is to bring our kids back and to punish those who stole them, who moved them to Russia. So this is a separate topic that is now discussed on par with reparations and rebuilding of Ukraine. And this is one of the important 5 major topics of this war, the return of our kids. All right, and I think we're at the bottom of our agenda for today. We meet with you on Saturday at 10 p.m. And I would make a note, that is the 3rd of June. This is already summer, so let's watch what's happening, and we'll see you on Saturday. Good luck.